Hi, I'm Pam Fox at pamfox.org, and I hope this finds you well today. I know that we're living in crazy times, but I've made a commitment to lead these 28-day challenges through the Plan I Reflex support group, so that's what I'm going to do. Our prayers go out to the people in Beirut today, as they've had an explosion on their port, have been following it very closely for the past hour. So, but yeah, we'll just keep doing what we do as long as we can. And today I'm gonna just throw together a smoothie. I just got back from a workout and I'm hungry and I want to replenish the water and the fiber and some nutrients. So we're gonna throw together a really quick smoothie. I'm gonna do a Three's Company smoothie with on a little bit of a variation because I need to go to the store. And then we're gonna talk kind of a part two from last week. Last week I talked about the importance of meeting your caloric needs, meeting your nutrient needs, how to achieve satiation. And this week we're going to kind of jump into that a little bit deeper and talk about the 3 reasons that you can be nutrient deficient. I could say on a plant-based diet, but really this applies to anybody. But 3 of the kind of the main reasons, even if you are eating, an abundant amount of calories, good calories, good quality calories, aka plant foods, 3 reasons you can still have nutrient deficiencies. And so this is really important. Obviously, one of the reasons a lot of people hesitate or have concerns about even trying a plant-based diet is they wonder, like, well, am I going to get enough protein? And am I going to get enough iron? Am I going to get enough calcium? They worry, like, am I going to be deficient? Which is, it's crazy that we're so conditioned to think that we could be deficient on a plant-based diet, because it's actually once we go on a plant-based diet that we start to meet a lot of the deficiencies that we already had. Protein is a really easy one to meet. So are calcium and iron. They're very easy to meet, very, very easy to meet on a plant-based diet. But the 3 things I'm going to talk about today are some of the reasons people can still continue to experience deficiencies, even if they're eating an abundance of plant foods, good, healthy sources of food, but they still can have deficiencies. So before we get into it, and this is probably going to be a fairly quick video because I'm just going to throw together a smoothie. I'm going to make the 3 green smoothie juice today, which is 3 bananas, 3 nuts, 3 cups of water, 3 ice cubes. I've only got 2 bananas. These are perfect and they're so good. But I've got some peaches and nectarines, which I've been buying like crazy. Wherever you guys live, I don't know if your peaches and nectarines are as good as they're so good. And this one is like really ripe. So I'm going to throw that in there as well, just to kind of bulk up the calories of this. So I have a Vitamix here. I'm just going to pull the seed out, or the stone out, and throw it in with the skins and all. And I'm going to finish up these greens. So 3 handfuls of greens. I don't think I mentioned that. 3 bananas, 3 nuts, 3 handfuls of greens, 3 cups of water, 3 ice cubes. And I'm out of my my Brazil nuts. I need to get more. I have almonds, but we'll go ahead and just put some of this flaxseed in there to get a little bit of healthy fat. It's just a nice balance when you're making these smoothies, that you do fruit and water and a little bit of healthy fat, like a nut or a seed, chia seed, flax seed. Flax is one of the probably, nuts, walnuts, they're all great. Brazil nuts, rich in selenium, they're all great. The flax seed, though, that's such a great source of the omega-3s, which is one of the things that a lot of people are deficient in, because it's not in a lot of people's diets if they're not supplementing it like this. So let's put in some water. I'm not going to really measure this. I just kind of bring the water up to the same level where the greens start, and then I can add more if I need to. All right, let's blend. I'll put some ice in there. Ice cubes. tend to blend the heck out of my smoothie just because I like to get all those specks of greens out of there. This was a flax meal. Oh, that smells so good. This was a flax meal that I was using, which means the flax seeds have been pre-ground, and I keep those in my freezer so that they last. But you can use whole flax seeds as well if you've got a Vitamix, and put those right in as well, and they'll blend up fine if you have a Vitamix. If you don't have a Vitamix, get your flax seed ground and keep it in the freezer or the refrigerator. Okay, here we go. Green goodness. Those nectarines are nice and sweet. Okay. All right, so I've got my book here. So if you're new to the plantar reflex support group, welcome. And if you're making your way through my book, Plantar Reflex, we're in chapter 10. And so we started in July, and now here we are in August. For those of you that maybe have done the challenge all throughout July, and now you're starting your second month, you can choose to do a second month where you continue to eliminate common triggers, or you can start to reintroduce one item at a time. I wouldn't reintroduce something like smoking cigarettes. I wouldn't introduce something like deep fried foods. I would introduce the healthier foods on the list. That would be something like a fermented food. Maybe a little bit of citrus. Maybe you make one of your favorite salad dressings and it's got lemon juice in it. Introduce one thing at a time, and experiment with that and see how that goes. And then you'll know if you can tolerate that or not. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. Maybe you can't now, but you can later. That's why we try these things, and we kind of trial and error, and really you just have to get to know your body and experiment and figure out what works for you. It's going to be different for everybody. So this is my book, Plantar Reflex, found on Amazon. I see that it's still under, it's like $5 and change or something like that. That is the promotional rate. I need to go into Amazon and see how much longer that's going to last. I thought it was 1 month, but I think my book's been out for about a month. So maybe it's 3 months. I can't remember. Maybe it's 2 months. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, you can pick up the book there. There's recipes that eliminate common trigger foods. Today we're going to talk about, before we get into, let me get back to chapter 10. Before we get into today's topic, I just want to remind you guys and be clear, and it's worth repeating. You know, I was just saying everybody's so different. And so for some people, they're trying to maybe heal their reflux while they're losing weight. Others are trying to heal reflux while they're gaining weight. Some people try these recipes and they eliminate common trigger foods and they respond really, really well. Other people, you know, maybe they can eat 4 foods and everything else sets them off. So it's going to be different for everybody. So you really, again, you have to have trial and error and figure out what works for you and not give up and keep trying. But we talked last week about the importance of being satiated and being full. And some of you might be thinking, well, Pam, you say you have to like eat until you're full, but I have to eat really small meals or I'll have reflux. And that's very, very true and very, very common. Probably one of the number one things a doctor will tell you, besides like propping yourself up at night and eliminating like alcohol and smoking and fatty foods, is to eat smaller meals, right? And we've talked all about that. When you eat smaller meals, it's going to help with if your digestion is slowed so that it's not all getting backed up. It's going to help with to reduce your risk of bloating, which can cause reflux. So it's really important to eat small meals for those reasons, but it's also important if you're trying a plant-based diet that you're not starving, right? Because you're eating less calories. So you just have to keep that in mind, and it's gonna look different for everybody. Like for some people, it might mean you have to eat 5 or 6 meals a day, still meeting your caloric needs, still meeting your nutrient needs, still achieving satiation, so you're not miserable and feeling like you're always on this horrible extreme diet. So you may have to eat smaller, more frequent meals, and it's just going to be different for everybody. So you got to figure out what works for you, and you've got to commit to that. And I know that eating frequent, smaller meals it might be more work. It might be more work because you have to really kind of get yourself on a schedule, make sure those foods are ready and available. But what you can just, just the same. I mean, what I do is I'll make a big meal for lunch, and I'll just eat leftovers for dinner. Or I even might make a huge breakfast like my potato hash, and I'll just eat it again for lunch and again for dinner. I mean, I love it. So I don't get tired of it. I know some people don't like to do that. My husband hates leftovers. So he won't eat the same meal today that he had yesterday. But I love leftovers, especially if I really like the food. I look forward to it. I'll eat that potato hash and I'll think, oh boy, I get to eat this again in a couple hours. So I don't mind it. So, but you can make a big meal and spread it out over the day, and put it in get some containers, some of these glass containers, and just fill them up and stack them up in your fridge, and portion control that way for whatever, those smaller meals that work for you. So you just got to figure out what works for you, and that's going to look different for everybody. But what we talked about last week is really making sure that you're meeting those caloric needs and you're meeting those nutrient needs, activating your stretch receptors. And that's my number one tip for succeeding on a plant-based diet, is never feeling like you're on a diet. So if you're making sure and eating, you're not skipping meals, you're not going to feel like you're on a diet, and you're going to be more likely to succeed. That's really going to set yourself up for success. All right, so let's move on. We're still in chapter 10, and the three things I want to talk about today, these exceptions that I have in the book. So I say, as long as you're meeting your caloric requirements on a plant-based diet, you will meet your nutrient needs. And there's three exceptions to that statement. So I'll say that one more time. As long as you're meeting your caloric requirements, right? As long as you're getting in the amount of calories that your body needs on a plant-based diet, then you're going to meet your nutrient needs. Why? Because you're eating an abundant amount and variety of plant foods. You're meeting your caloric needs. And those plant foods are full of water and nutrition and vitamins and minerals and fiber and all the things that the body needs, all those minerals and vitamins. So if you're meeting those caloric needs, you're going to by default meet those nutrient needs. Okay, so here's the exception. So number one, and we alluded to this a little bit last week, and that's vitamin B12. So a lot of times you'll hear people say, "Oh, you're going to be deficient. You're not going to be able to meet all your vitamins and minerals." No, that's not true at all. Like I said before, it's actually the opposite. You're going to start meeting deficiencies that you've had all along, probably on your regular diet, because you're going to be foods that are packed with dense nutrition, dense vitamins and minerals and beyond and more. Okay? So the reason that vitamin B12 is the one supplement that doctors, all of the plant-based doctors, every single one of them that I follow, I think there's one that says it's not as important as everyone makes it out to be, but go ahead and take it just to cover all bases. But the 99.99% of all of my doctors, my mentors, say go ahead and take a B12 supplement if you are vegan, if you are plant-based, because vitamin B12 is a microbe that exists in the soil. Okay, and modern farming practices have really diminished vitamin B12. It's just really diminished, especially in the last couple of decades. So this microbe that used to be this bug, this germ that was just, it was on the food, because with modern practice, everything's washed. There's chemicals a lot of times that go hand in hand with conventional farming that kill off that microbe. Even the water, like the water that they water the crops with, sometimes is rich in, or even has trace amounts of, chlorine, depending on the farm. Like your drinking water has chlorine in it. And that can diminish this bug, this microbe, this B12. We call it a vitamin, but it's just a bug. It's a microbe. So anyway, typically, generally speaking, when we're tested like across the board for vitamin B12, you see deficiencies across the board. It doesn't matter what kind of diet you're on. Vegan diet, carnivore diet, paleo diet, ketogenic diet, it doesn't matter. We see this deficiency in vitamin B12. And so yeah, you can take a supplement. I don't have anything right here. I've been out for a while. I don't think I have anything to show you guys. I usually get mine. I've been vegan for several years, so I've tried different sources. I've tried the drops. I've just, like the last time I just got a big thing at Costco, and I'm out right now. But, and again, the doctors that I follow say to just try to remember to take it like once or twice a week. It's not even that big a deal. It's just you want to get a little bit in, and a little goes a long way apparently. So it's not like you got to like make sure you're taking it every single day or you're going to die. But it is important. It is important. And so that's the exception number one is, if you're meeting your caloric needs on a plant-based diet, you're going to meet your nutrient needs with that exception of vitamin B12. And it matters where you live around the world too, and where your food source. I mean, if you're growing all your own food and it's 100% organic and you're just picking food out of the garden, and just brushing the dirt off, you're probably fine. You don't need to supplement. You're probably fine. If you're drinking, filtered water that's not rich in chlorine. So yeah, it's really just going to depend, and so therefore just take the supplement. Yeah. Okay. So exception number 2 is considering pathogenic activity in the gut. And so this can range from, viruses and unhealthy bacteria, but parasites in particular, they have to eat too. And so you can be eating a really healthy diet, eating an abundance of calories, meeting your caloric needs, and you've got parasites. And so they're eating your food too. And so this isn't something you need to really freak out about. Parasitic activity, pathogenic activity is fairly common, and and fairly not harmful in a lot of cases. It's when that parasitic activity when there's an overgrowth. That's when there can begin to be a problem. And so I don't talk a whole lot about this in the book. I think I just mentioned it briefly. I went on and on and on about it, and I deleted the whole thing just because and that is, I have some over here. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about here. Okay, so one of my favorite things you can do just to keep parasitic activity in check is to do a course in diatomaceous earth. This is food grade diatomaceous earth. And I order this online, and then I share it with all my family and friends because I don't need this much. But so look into this, you guys. Join a Facebook support group. There are a couple of them online. Look into it. I know I researched it for a long time before I tried it because I'll just tell you now, this is commonly used as a pesticide. People use it around their pets. They use it around their plants. This is food grade diatomaceous earth, and it's a silica rich kind of a flour. It looks like a flour. And I'm a big believer in this stuff. I'm just going to show you, it's just like a, that. And the reason, I'll tell you why I'm a big believer. So many, many years ago, I'm 50, and when I turned around 30, I bought one of those down comforters. I had always wanted one of those big fluffy down comforters. And I bought a really nice one, and I was really excited about it, and I just loved it. But I noticed within just a couple of days, I started really sweating at night, and I thought, well, it's just too hot. And so I tried changing different pajamas, and it just got worse and worse and worse. And not only did I get hot, but I would just wake up really sweating at night, drenched. I'd have to get up and change my clothes, lay a towel down because the sheets were wet. It was really bad. And I talked to my doctor about it, and she said it could be perimenopause, don't worry about it, that kind of thing. And I finally just got rid of the comforter because it was just it's just too hot. But I continue to have these night sweats, for years, literally for years, from the time I was 30 until I was in my early 40s. So when I was in my early 40s, I'm pretty sure it was before I even went vegan. I was researching diatomaceous earth, not for my night sweats, but because I'd heard a lot of good things about it in terms of just keeping parasites in check. And by the way, it's used as a pesticide for pets and plants, and it can do the same thing internally, which is, I don't know how it works, but it's supposed to. Parasites don't like it. Parasites don't like it. So if you have an overgrowth of parasites, and by the way, if you have an overgrowth of parasites and your body wants to kind of check that, diminish that, you're going to sweat at night because when you're sleeping, your body is going to try to overheat to kill out pathogenic activity. So that makes sense why I was having those night sweats every single night. Okay, so, and this is just all self-diagnostics here. I was never diagnosed with parasites or anything. I never had a stool sample tested or anything like that. But I was going to say, when I finally tried the diatomaceous earth, it was just to see if it would affect my health in any way, because I had multiple health problems, like multiple health problems. So yeah, this was before I went vegan. Um, and so I just wanted to try it. And so I researched it and researched it and researched it. And I finally bought some, and I was like, oh, I was really scared. I didn't know, like, I'm taking this pesticide. I feel like I'm taking poison. Um, but I started using it, and guess what I noticed? I noticed that within just a couple of days, where did my night sweats go? My night sweats went away. So, and they've been gone ever since. And I'll do like maybe once or twice a year, I'll think, oh, I should do another course in diatomaceous earth. And what do I mean by that? And again, guys, I'm not a doctor. You guys need to do your own research and look into this on your own. Join a support group on Facebook and read other people's testimonies, and you'll see what I see. What I found out is that it helps a lot of people for a variety of things. Why? Because it's getting that parasitic activity in check, which may be causing this problem or that problem or a variety of problems. So a course in diatomaceous earth is what's usually recommended. And again, if you go to some of these, like to a Facebook support group, it'll say to do like you just put a shot of water in a glass and maybe like a quarter teaspoon or a half a teaspoon, no more than that. You just stir it up and you drink it, and that's it. You do that once a day. And the reason they have you start out with maybe a half a teaspoon or a quarter teaspoon is because everybody's going to react differently. Some people notice that they get really constipated. Other people notice that they have like explosive diarrhea. I didn't notice anything. When I first started taking it, I took a half a teaspoon the first day, and then like a week later, I upped it to like a whole teaspoon, and I never really noticed much in terms of digestion. But I'll tell you what, those night sweats started going away. So I did that for a month. Now, when you go on these support groups, some people take it every day for life. They're just like firm believers that it's rich in silica. And I'll tell you what, when I take it, my nails, they shoot out. They just grow really, really long and really, really strong. So it's rich in silica, so it's probably good for your bones and your teeth and your hair. I mean, I don't see any reason why you couldn't take it every single day. I just don't like to bother with it. I feel great and I'm healthy, so I try to focus on food first and foremost. But I feel great. Like if I was having other issues, I don't know, if I thought I had weak bones or something like that, I might take it every day. But anyway, so that's exception number 2 is pathogenic activity, particularly parasites. And this is one thing that you can consider, you can look into, you can investigate, you can join a Facebook group and learn more about what people are saying about food grade diatomaceous earth. I'm a big believer. I'm a big believer. So I do talk a little bit in the book, a little bit more about diatomaceous earth. It's a fossilized, it's a rich fine sand that consists of fossilized algae. The diatoms, they're like just basically fossils that are mined out of a seabed and of shells, basically, of like these, what do you call them? Plankton shells and different things like that. Okay. All right, so let's move on to the third thing and the third exception, and that is, this is a really important one, and that's the low production of stomach acid. So your stomach acid is there for a reason. It needs to be strong in order to really break down that food in your stomach, and then that chyme, which is the liquid of your food broken down with the acid, moves into your your intestines, your small intestines, for further absorption of those vitamins and minerals. When the food starts to move into this, first of all, if it's in your stomach and you have low stomach acid, it's going to sit in there for a longer period of time. And that acid is trying to break down that food, break down that food. And then it's going to start sending it into the small intestine, where you may have larger chunks of food within that chyme that weren't fully broken down, right? And so now you have this chyme that's going through your small intestine for the purpose of absorption of vitamins and minerals, but it's not fully broken down. And so those pieces that didn't get fully broken down. I mean, imagine if you put some water in a bowl with some flour and you just barely whisked it, and you looked and you still see these little lumps of flour, right? As opposed to putting it in the blender and really giving it a whirl, and then it's this pure liquid. That's kind of what I'm talking about. And so then when the food goes into the small intestine, it's not thoroughly digested like it should have been, and that's that previous step. It goes in for absorption, and you're not going to get as much vitamins and nutrients out of it because of weak or low stomach acid. So what can we do? Now, this is another a tricky topic for people with reflux. One, because a lot of people with reflux are on a medication that minimizes stomach acid. Um, and we know very well now it's on the, it's on the the flyer that comes with your drug. You can look it up on the internet. You can talk to your pharmacist. You can talk to your doctor. There's no controversy. Proton pump inhibitors that are meant to inhibit your stomach acid production have a lot of side effects. Nutrient deficiency, unfortunately, can be one of them. So, with that said, I'm not telling anyone to stop taking their proton pump inhibitor. Usually, when your doctor puts you on that, it's for a very good reason. And I say usually because I believe that some doctors are really quick to just prescribe because that's the protocol. You've got reflux, this is the protocol. You've got reflux, this is what I'm taught to do. Here's your prescription for PPI. Other times they put you on a PPI because they've done a diagnostic, and they can see that your esophagus has a lot of damage and injury to it, and they've got to minimize reflux. And so, if that's the case, then that's a really good reason to be taking a PPI. You don't want to be on it forever. Okay, you need to be figuring out comprehensively how you can get to the root and overcome reflux altogether. But that PPI will give your esophagus time to heal. If you're in that category of having, you've had a diagnostic done, there's damage to your esophagus, you've got to get your reflux under control. Or maybe you've got stomach ulcers. There could be a couple of different reasons you're going to be put on a PPI. And some of them are very good reasons. So, I'm not here to tell you just to cold turkey your meds. I'm not here to tell you to cold turkey your meds. Some people do, and they do fine. Some people do, and they ask for more trouble. So each individual has to figure out what works best for them. But you need to understand this. You need to understand that strong stomach acid is there for a reason. It's there for a reason, and a lot of people go on an acid supplement, and their reflux goes away. Now, that's not always the case. So you need to understand these things. You just need to understand this option of supplementing to increase your stomach acid instead of decreasing your stomach acid. Now, remember, and I say this all the time, and it's so important, if you have or even suspect you have a stomach acid, you do not want to supplement with hydrochloric acid. You don't want to boost your acid if you know that you've got a stomach ulcer. You've got to heal those ulcers first. That comes first. So that's got to be your number one focus, is healing the ulcers. Because if you throw in a bunch more fire onto fuel onto a fire, or gasoline onto a fire, the fire's just going to get bigger, right? So if you've got ulcers and you take hydrochloric acid, it's going to make the ulcers worse. Okay, but look into this as well. Look into hydrochloric acid supplementation. A lot of people recommend hydrochloric acid with pepsin. I, however, do not. And if you have been following me, you already understand why. We don't, for people with reflux, we don't necessarily need to be increasing pepsin. But again, a lot of people take the hydrochloric with acid, and it helps. So my best recommendation is to work with a doctor that understands hydrochloric acid and or pepsin supplementation, and work with that doctor. Usually it's going to be like a functional medicine doctor, a naturopath, something like that. I mean, if you can find a conventional doctor that's going to be like, oh yeah, hydrochloric acid, let's try that. That's going to be pretty rare. They're going to be like, no. At least that's the experience. And I can't speak for everybody. I just belong to a lot of support groups on Facebook, and you hear that a lot. I asked my doctor about that, and he was like, no, that's crazy. So you just have to do your own research and find a doctor that's willing to work with you, or you can do it on your own. I experimented with hydrochloric acid on my own, and what I found, I was already doing really well just from making changes in my diet, but I was still having a response to certain foods like coffee, garlic and onions, raw garlic and onions. I had a very distinct response to certain foods like coffee and raw garlic and onions. So I started taking a course in hydrochloric acid, just pure hydrochloric acid, without the pepsin, and would eat it with meals, or with coffee, like coffee and a dessert. Like I remember my husband and I just took one with a coffee and a dessert. We went out for coffee and a dessert, and I was fine. I couldn't believe it. I was shocked. I was just like, this is wonderful. My stomach, I kept saying it over and over. My stomach feels so normal. It feels so normal. So for me, I wouldn't have reflux. I had gotten to the point where I'd overcome my reflux, but I would have definite discomfort and indigestion, like no burning, but just like that little bit of nauseous indigestion. Like if I could just have a massive burp, I'd feel fine, but it never happened. um, so I responded well to the hydrochloric acid, and the theory is that when you supplement with hydrochloric acid, your body is like kind of stimulated to then produce more stomach acid on its own. And I believe that's totally true, because what you'll find if you're new to this is the recommendation when you start to like look into this is to just start with like one capsule with your biggest meal of the day, one hydrochloric acid capsule with your biggest meal of the day, and then just see what happens. If you feel fine, if you don't have any symptoms, that's good. And then the next day you do 2 tablets with your biggest meal of the day, and you see how you respond, like within 15, 20, 30 minutes. So what you're looking for is your dosage. Everybody's going to have a different dosage depending on how weak or not your stomach acid is. Some people end up having to take 7, 8, 9 capsules with the meal before they notice what's called the burn. So the burn isn't acid reflux. It's an actual burn you feel in your stomach because you've got all this acid in your stomach. And so you're looking for that burn. And once you have that burn, and you'll know it when you feel it, then you back down to what you were taking the day before and you didn't experience the burn, and that's your dosage. So that's kind of how it works. And for me, I think I got up to 4 tablets, 3 or 4. I think it was 4 where I felt, I was like, oh, there's the burn. And what you want to do is just drink some water to dilute your stomach acid, or even some like alkaline water if you have it, to dilute that a little bit, and then you'll feel fine. It's not super painful. It's just uncomfortable. Then you know your dosage. And for me, it was 3. And then within about a week, I felt the burn just with the 3. And so I backed it down to 2. And then a week later, I felt the burn at 2. And then I backed it down to 1. And then when the month was over, I'd gone through the whole jar, and I was done. And then I think I bought another jar and I gave it to my son, and I don't know what he did with it, and then I bought another jar, and I don't even know. I think it's in my medicine cabinet, but I never take it. So I have strong stomach acid now. See how that works? Like you start out with a larger dose and you don't feel a burn, and then you back it down, and then your body is now stimulated to make its own, I don't know, more adequate strength of stomach acid. So that's number 3. So let's just summarize really quick. Number 1 is vitamin B12. So you can take a supplement of vitamin B12 if you're going to be doing plant-based for a couple of months. Go ahead and pick up some vitamin B12. If you know you're going to be vegan forever, then just go ahead and expect that you just want to take it every now and then. And guys, you can have your blood work tested. You can go into your doctor and say, I'd like to get a full panel. And just see, I'm on this plant-based diet. I just kind of like to see where I'm at. And they can test you for some of these things. And whatever, usually there's just a comprehensive panel that's going to have a variety of things. But you can specifically ask, like, is it going to test my B12? Because I really want to see where I'm at with that. Is it going to test my vitamin D? And that's the other one kind of across the board, particularly people who live, further away from the equator. Vitamin D is not even a vitamin. It's a hormone our body creates when our skin is exposed to the sunlight. So, I live up here in Northern Oregon. I lived in Washington my whole life. Vitamin D deficiency is probably something I've had all my life. But since I've been vegan, I've gone in twice and had the full comprehensive blood panel done. My vitamin B12 was fine. My vitamin D was on the lower edge of normal, but it wasn't anything my doctor was highly concerned about. She was like, if you want to take a supplement, that's fine. And I bought some, but I never take it. Again, I try to focus on food. I try to, in the summer months, spring, summer, and fall, I try to get out as much as possible. That's what I do. And then I think I probably get plenty of vitamin D as long as I make that a priority. So vitamin B12. Number 2 is consider pathogenic activity and try to do something that's going to keep those parasites in check. The diatomaceous earth is just one suggestion. There's a lot of things you can do to do a parasite cleanse. I see a question, Suzanne. I'll answer your question. So you can look that up online as well, like different ways to do parasite cleanse. This is just a really cheap, gentle, easy, quick thing to try. Um, Food grade diatomaceous earth. It's not very expensive. You get a huge bag that you can share with your family and friends. And you probably don't have to buy a bag this big. It was just, I think this was like, I can't remember, like $12 or $15 or something like that. And so it's kind of nice because I have friends that use it too, and I can just be like, oh, we'll share. And then number 3 is just remembering that that your stomach acid, the weaker it is, the less absorption of, the higher risk you are for vitamin deficiencies through compromised absorption due to that low stomach acid. So, all right, so I got a question here from, where'd it go? There, from Suzanne. Hey, Suzanne, she says, has your cholesterol and sugar gone down a lot since being vegan? Well, I've always had really good cholesterol. I don't know why, if it runs in my family. And I'm not sure what you mean by sugar. So I've never been at risk for diabetes or anything like that. Typically on a plant-based diet, you could consider that a high sugar diet. I mean, if you're eating a lot of fruit, a plant-based diet is technically a high carbohydrate diet. So that's where we get our, fructose, glucose, all of that good stuff from the plants. But I understand your question, and it's a common question. I think the first time I made the smoothie, the first comment somebody made was, if I drank that, it would put me into a diabetic coma. She said if she drank this, it would put her into a diabetic coma. Somebody had made that comment. And she made the comment because it has 3 bananas in it. Well, this one doesn't, but it's generally a myth that if we eat a lot of fruit, we're going to put ourselves into a diabetic coma. When you're eating fruit, yes, there's sugar in it, but it's wrapped up in a piece of fruit with all the other goodness that's with it, that balances it out and makes it hyper beneficial for health. Hyper beneficial for health. That sugar is what gives us energy. It's what gives us energy to be able to live. So yeah, I mean, in general, are there exceptions? Are there people that do need to be careful about how much fruit they eat? Yeah, I would imagine those people are out there. I would say it's a very small amount of people. Just because, I mean, Dr. Michael Greger, one of my mentors, check out his website if you haven't. It's nutritionfacts.org. He reported on, and what he does is report on the science. His whole website, his entire staff, what they've devoted their work to is reporting on the newest science and the best science as it pertains to nutrition, which is great because there's a lot of information out there about nutrition, and a lot of it collides with each other, right? You've got, this study came out, but this study came out, and they say 2 different things about the same topic. So Dr. Michael Greger, for the last decade, interestingly enough, 2 decades ago, his life's work was dedicated to virology. He's a virologist, so now he's kind of going back to that a little bit, but given the climate. But for the last decade, he's dedicated his work to getting out information about nutrition and disease and how they relate to each other. But he did a report on a study, what I'm trying to get at, he did a report on a study that showed the number one cause or reason for all-cause mortality. In other words, the worst thing that you can do is not eat enough fruit, and the best thing that you can do is eat more fruit for your health. Like it was a massive study that took place for over a massive period of time with massive people. And their conclusion was, they came up with all these things you can do to improve your health based on this study. And the number one thing they said, people who were sick, people who were dying, people with number of comorbidities, obesity, diabetes, heart disease, they weren't eating enough fruit. They were hardly eating any fruit. And the healthy people were eating plenty of fruit. So, Suzanne, all that to say, it's my opinion that Americans and first world countries in particular need to get over this idea that that there's a risk that we could be incorporating too much sugar, right? I mean, table sugar, that's another thing. Here's my table sugar, and I keep this for What do I use this for? An occasional coffee. If I, buy some fruit and it's not very sweet, like blueberries or peaches or whatever, I might sprinkle a little bit of sugar over them. And because I do it so rarely, I don't care. Like it's not a big deal. I don't eat candy bars. I don't eat cookies. I mean, I will. If I make homemade cookies for Christmas and they've got sugar in them and I do that, that's fine. But there's also things like dates and molasses and, nuts and good things in whole grain, flours in those cookies or whatever it is, banana breads or whatever it is. I just don't eat vegan donuts, vegan cupcakes. I mean, probably maybe once or twice a year I'll go into the city and get a vegan donut or a vegan cupcake. It's just so rare. So you have to consider that too. Like if your diet in general is really rich in plant foods and by default it's rich in sugar and rich in carbohydrate for that reason, that's fine. That's, in my opinion, that's our species specific diet we were meant to eat. These foods, I think I start out my whole book talking about how fruit drips from the sky, drips from the trees and the plants, they sprout from the ground. The earth provides us with what these bodies need, and with each species, bovines, felines, canines, primates, all these different animals, different species they each have their own species specific diet. And when you see an animal, like domesticated animals, like a dog or a cat, right, and they're eating people food or whatever, and they get diabetes and they have to go on, and their health is compromised because they're not eating their species specific diet. And so humans, why wouldn't we have a species specific diet? And if we do, what is it? Well, in general, we're omnivores because our digestive tract can handle a variety of different kinds of food, like meat, dairy, eggs, whole grains, beans, fruits, vegetables. Our digestive tract can handle all of that. You can't say that for felines, right? They're carnivores. So we're omnivorous, which means we can handle a variety. But is that ideal? Now, when you start to look at blue zones and you look at different populations that live for, long term in communities where they eat mostly plant-based, maybe not 100%, but maybe 80 to 90% of their food comes from the earth, and they have maybe fish on Sundays or something like that. These are our healthiest populations, right? Have you guys heard about the blue zones? This was a group of people that began a project from National Geographic, going all around the world looking for the healthiest populations. They were looking for centenarians. They were looking for populations with, people who live to be 100 and older without disease, people who were independent, people who don't take medications. And so what they found they found these 4 or 5 different blue zones, and they determined why these people were so healthy and independent and off medications. Guess what? They ate primarily plant-based. So, so we are omnivores, but is that ideal? What's ideal, in my opinion, is that we are plativores or frugivores or herbivores, whatever you want to call it, which is to say we eat the bulk of our food coming from plants the bulk of the time. Doesn't have to be all the time, but if it can be a large percentage, to me, that's what's ideal. And of course, everyone's going to be different. And there are people out there like on a ketogenic diet that are probably doing a live right now and saying, I healed from this, and that, and I feel great and I lost weight, just like I'm saying on a plant-based diet. So, you can't really just say one diet fits all. I understand that, but it is my belief that a plant-based diet is extremely healthy and beneficial. So Suzanne says, I really noticed on this diet how I'm not craving sugar anymore. Well, that's good. Yeah, well, that's, again, and we talked a little bit about that today, when we're meeting our nutrient needs on a plant-based diet, or meeting our caloric needs, we're going to meet our nutrient needs, activate those stretch receptors, and you shouldn't have, maybe in the beginning, and it's, again, everybody's going to be different, just depending on the background coming from, for someone that's maybe been doing yo-yo dieting for years, and maybe they heavy drinker, or maybe they've taken diet pills or some of these different things, or smoking, and they've really kind of maybe altered the palate for a variety of reasons. It might take a little bit longer to really get that point where you're just like, yeah, I'm not really having those cravings. But yeah, I used to keep cookies in the freezer at work. I had candy bars stashed in my closet and in my desk. And when I had that sugar craving, I was like, I had to stop what I was doing and get me some sugar. I mean, that was just like, drop everything, I need my cookies. And yeah, it was really cool when I went on a plant-based diet. It was just like, I didn't need coffee. I didn't need cookies. I was eating 3 times a day, very large meals. I mean, I didn't even snack in between because I was eating when I started out, I was eating very large meals. Now, today I eat more intuitively. I've cut back. I mean, this might seem like a lot to you, but this is actually probably half of what I would have eaten when I first started out. I would put anywhere from 6 to 10 bananas in a smoothie and fill 2 of these and try to drink that, in the morning before, and it took me like an hour and a half to get through it all. I would just drink one in the morning while I was getting ready for work, and I would grab the other one and take it with me to work and drink it on my way and while I was answering emails in the morning or whatever. But now I eat more intuitively. So, I've been doing this for 6 years, and I just have really gained a lot of knowledge and information and intuition on what my body needs, right? What my body needs. And that changes. It changes throughout the seasons. It changes depending on my activity level. Like right now, I have an accountability buddy. Like a couple months, probably 3 months into this lockdown, I was just like, I have got to figure something out, because I literally would just like sit on my butt all day long, just like Twitter, because I wanted to know what was going on in the world. And I had a daughter in Seattle and a son in LA, and all the writing was just like going crazy at the beginning. Of all of this, and so I was just like, that's all I did was just like, so yeah, I was just like, I've got to do something. And so I got to get myself an accountability partner. That's what I was thinking to myself. And as I was thinking that, literally, like, I was at work and this girl walks in. I was like, hey, you want to be my accountability? And she's like, yes. So we've been getting together 4 or 5 days a week. We get together in the morning before she goes to work, and we do all kinds of stuff, and we try to have a lot of fun. We try to keep it fun. We do 1 or 2 days a week. We do something a little bit more hardcore, like some circuit training. So we've just done a variety of things. Some days we just go for a hike. Some days we go for a bike ride. Some days we go to Zumba. So we just do a real variety of different cross training. And I feel great. I'm so glad to be exercising again. So anyway, but I wouldn't be able to do that if it weren't for the sugar. All right, guys. Well, it's been fun chatting. I just really hope and pray that everyone out there is doing okay. I know these are hard and crazy times. Keep the faith, keep the hope alive, keep taking care of yourself, take care of your spirit, and take care of your loved ones. That's all we can really do at this point. So, my battery's about to die. All right, thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.